Hi, everybody, and hello and welcome to Network Now, a podcast designed to help you build business connections and to create opportunities. My name is Lee Foster of Revitalize Connecting People, and with me today is the delightful duo co-hosts of Julie Taylor and Louisa Stewart from Blue Ninja Business Support. Louisa, over to you.
Oh, thank you very much, Lee. Very excited by this week. It's going to be a good one. This podcast will give you great insight and tips to better engage within your network and build up your networking skills using different tools and techniques. We'll be tapping into our own networks to bring you exciting guests discussing a range of topics all about networking. So make sure you're following us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, on the Revitalize and Blue Ninja social media. You can also find us on Anchor FM and Spotify. Just take 10 seconds to like and subscribe to our channels, and this helps give us visibility and gets our podcasts out to a wider audience.
So we've got an exciting week of discussion coming up, along with our three guests who will be on this week, including Christine Trudhope, if I've said that right, she'll correct me tomorrow, accountant and entrepreneur from South Africa. And then on Wednesday, we've got Brent Edwards, which is he's a professional relationship connector from Canada. And then the day after, we've got Robert Herkus, online health coach and business nomad, who's recently relocated from the UK to Dubai. But today, we're going to be discussing what international networking is and how you can have an impact on a global scale. So let's get started.
Yep.
So Lee, what is international networking? What do we mean by international networking?
That's a really good question, as always. I think now more than ever before, with us all working in as we call it, the hybrid type of work with online and offline or in person, but especially online, it's opened up all the boundaries for international networking. I think over the last few years, we've seen things like Clubhouse and Facebook and rooms that are starting to now open up. That's opened up the international side of things. You know, we spoke about a few of the actual guests we're going to have this week, especially like Brent Edwards, based over in Canada. Again, I met Brent a fair few months ago, many months ago, really, and that sort of bridged the gap to an international networking stance. You know, the use of LinkedIn, especially with a virtual network, the LinkedIn side of it, is we're always connecting with people from across the pond, from all across the globe now more than ever before. But international networking to me is taking that opportunity to make more time for yourself to really delve into other markets. I think there's a lot of people, Julie and Louise, and look at yourselves, you're in the Netherlands, you know, from an international windswept and interesting type of characters that you are. You know, we look at that perspective, you know, you're in the Netherlands, I'm based in Glasgow. That international part of it is opened up so much easier, like what we're doing this week. You know, the power of Zoom has literally opened up the boundaries even further to make it even more accessible for people to actually chat to one another.
Do you remember when everyone used to have telephones? You'd have a landline. And you'd arrange a business call with someone. So you'd set a day and time that you were going to phone them on the landline and have a chat. You know, that was 10 years ago that you were doing, you know, pre-planned phone calls to people and to connect internationally. It was so expensive to do that. I mean, the world of online networking opened up, I think, when the costs came down.
Yes. Yeah. I think especially when you've got like a mobile phone, you know, it was that, Louisa and Julie. It was. Do you remember that when you think about the landline? That sounds like decades ago now. The landline. If you ask somebody now for their landline number, they go, "What's a landline?"
Yeah.
I've got a mobile, and they go, "No, you must have a landline." But remember the days we used to tile in the numbers:
Yep.
1, 5, 7.
And telephone going.
I did have a cost. I did have a cost saving on the landline. Obviously, it wouldn't be useful for business conversations, but when you needed picking up, you just gave 3 rings. Do you remember doing that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also remember, this is me showing my age now as well. It's the days of having telephone boxes. You had a pocket full.
You wouldn't want to go in one now.
Pocket full of change to go, right, I've got a few 10 pence pieces. I'll put that in now.
Yeah.
Put it in. you're running out of money, put it in. But
Yep.
yeah, I think it's so much now opened up the easy way of doing it. You know, everything's on your phone now. Everything's digital. It's so much easier. But yeah, gone are the days of landline or carrying a big mobile phone around with you in the early days.
They were impressive though, weren't they, when they first came out?
They were impressive.
I found
Getting into
car
the
phones.
briefcase. Yeah.
Car phones were quite impressive. I
Yeah.
thought that was an interesting one.
Yeah. I mean, there's
Yeah.
many years ago when you talk about internationally wise, and you know, I had a small spell in the mobile phone industry, and it was prior to car sales and everything else. But they were talking back then. I mean, I'm going back 25 more years really, and they were talking about the likes of having video in your car. I was like, that'll never catch on.
Why would
That'll
you?
never catch. You're gonna be able to speak to somebody on a video in your car. And now, lo and behold, you can speak to somebody on FaceTime. You can talk to them through your Zoom, your WhatsApp. You can do everything now. The watch. I haven't got the watch yet.
No, I haven't. No, I haven't either.
But yeah, I think international networking, when you look at it now, it's, you know, I was on a Clubhouse call last week. I haven't been on Clubhouse for a little while. And Clubhouse opened up another boundary, another opportunity when you look at that. And there's other platforms, of course, available. But they've all got rooms or places you can actually sort of get together. And I think from the national stance, it was a real poignant before this week's sort of network now, was that I jumped onto Clubhouse and I was in a room of 59 other people. And I had a chance to go on stage and introduce myself. And I made 3 to 4 connections from over the sort of west coast of the United States. Now, you would never imagine that at least about 3 to 4 years ago. And that to me is networking, because now those 3 to 4 individuals have now heard my introduction. They've connected with me on LinkedIn. They've been invited to come along to one of my shows or one of my events. I've now started networking. We've started a stepping stone of a conversation, a relationship in business. I think that's the key part of it. It's that activity. Get outside your comfort zone. Sorry.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, last episodes with our guest, you know, Ashley from the US, you know, it felt effortless to bring her in and have a chat. Her knowledge and experience was you know, wonderful to the audience listening. You know, maybe 5 years ago, those sorts of opportunities weren't quite there yet. It's, you know, you kind of know someone, but that connectivity just didn't feel like as seamless as it does now.
Yeah. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I hope that answers your question, Julie, in regards to international networking.
Yeah, I mean, I know we connected again, it probably was last summer when you were asking us whether we were dipping our toes into Clubhouse, and we weren't, and we still haven't been there. But it's making me think of old-fashioned chat lines. Not that I don't mean it used to be. No, do you remember when we were teenagers audio chat? That's what it makes me think of. So I think maybe I might have a little go at that. So, but it is video as well. It's not just audio, is it?
No, I think it's all audio. It's all audio. You just see a picture of somebody on the screen.
Okay, so it's not video calling as well.
Just all audio.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And I think dipping into sort of how connectivity's worked internationally. I mean, I've moved from Australia to Scotland to Germany and now into the Netherlands, you know, so my international footprint is probably a lot bigger than most people's. But what I found is I came back to places that were familiar to me. So in Germany, I didn't really connect with German businesses. The space wasn't there. I came back to the UK to connect with British businesses. So for me, that ability to network internationally was imperative for my sanity. You know, living in another country, which was gorgeous and loved it, you know, loved living there, but in a networking space, it wasn't optimal. There, you know, even socially, you know, we found a few English speakers in our area. You know, and you know, we built up a circle of friends that we could, you know, meet and you know, converse with. But business related, that wasn't there at all. So, you know, that ability to come back into the British networks was critical for me to be able to work from Germany, you know, coming back and forth to the UK for that period of time.
Do you know what? Do you know what's really interesting is saying that, because many people ask the question, or ask everybody who's watching today as well, is that why network in other areas for?
Mm.
And a lot of people ask me that same question: is why are you networking in the United States? Why are you networking in Australia? Why are you going to other sort of events in Canada, for example, and the Netherlands? And they go, well, everybody else who's in those other countries, they're networking in our sort of marketplaces. You know, a lot of people forget about that, especially from an international stance, is that go and it's also a comfort zone. Would you both agree?
Yeah,
There's a
definitely.
there's a comfort zone of saying, right, I'm going to stay in my own little area. I'm not going to drift out to anywhere else that I really want to travel into. But sometimes when you get out that comfort zone and you go and speak to people in those little arenas, that's where some of the gold nuggets you find in there. You really do.
Definitely, because and unless you've got a product which is very local, say it's, you know, something that maybe it's a food business that's very sort of, you know, fresh and needs to be delivered local, but still you never know. By talking to somebody in another country, they might know somebody very close to you that might be a great contact. You just don't know until you have that conversation.
It's funny because there's a few members that I've spoken to, they have, you know, they have clients overseas, and they've actually found clients working with them online now. So you can actually do a remote working with individuals or teams via the power of online. You know, you don't know if you try that, and it's the tools are here for us to do that now as an individual or as a corporate business. And I think in this day and age, you cannot just, and I mean this with the best respect, you cannot just rely on what's around you locally.
Definitely
You've got to
not.
look further.
I think you're missing a bit of a trick. I mean, even with our very small company, we've got support in that works with us in France, in Scotland, and Canada. Have I missed anybody, Louisa?
No, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. And we had somebody else who was home visiting her family in India. So we had the sort of time scale at both ends, and clients in the US as well. So it can extend your day. So you've just got to watch your timings. But if you don't try, you know, you're never going to know. So I'm interested to know how you connected with your US people, because I think you've got a bit of history of working in the US, haven't you, Lee?
I did. Well, my background was working in the United States market with the travel industry. So I had 8.5 years. I was working for a company that was based in a place called Pawtucket, which is southwest of Boston. It's a great word. It sounds even better in a Geordie accent. But I was fortunate enough to work with that company based over there. So I still kept some great connections based over the East Coast in the United States, and some scattered across like Texas and further afield. So people saw what I was doing online. But I think as well, to get involved into those areas, it's having those invitations. Do you want to come along to this? Do you want to try this out? And that's what really sort of opened up the international network for me. You know, it actually came through a recommendation from somebody to speak to somebody in that area. Lee, you need to speak to such and such. You know, you need to speak to Tommy. You need to speak to, you know, Catherine. You need to speak to other people that are part of it. And also, and you both know, I do a lot of the golf network. Right, that's the only other network that I'm part of, except for running my own networking organization. But the golf network opened it up. I might not play golf in the United States, but their online offering opened up the other doors. I could communicate with people in the similar sort of industry, talk about similar sort of backgrounds and that sort of area. So that's what really came for me, Julie.
And how much you'd learn from other people in different environments. I mean, different experiences, different outlook on you know, a same topic. You know, you could have 20 different opinions from different countries, because the way that you look at it, you know, at a topic or something is going to be very different depending on your audience.
That's a good point. I was actually thinking about that as we're talking through it. We talk a lot about sales, and we talk about a lot about opportunity. You know, everybody thinks of networking, right? Now, you know, I always like to put stuff out there and not sugarcoat it at all and say, listen, this is the way it should be. Everybody goes there to sell to a room. They all go there to look for a sales opportunity, an order, a sale that's coming in. Touch on a great point there, Louisa. right? Many people who go to networking, you actually gain so much knowledge from the other people that are in the room and from different industries and different backgrounds. So a marketplace in the Netherlands or a marketplace in Australia, people think it's slightly different what we do here. No, it's not. They're in business and they start off for a reason. And the way you can sponge, that word of sponging, taking it all in, just really getting all that knowledge in from people and working with individuals to get some great best practices in place, some good processes in place. I think that's such a great point, Louisa.
Yeah. And even, in some countries, you get to know someone before you even discuss business. Like, it's just, you do not come in with a business pitch before you've gotten to know them. You've come to dinner, you've met the family, you build the relationship first, and then you discuss how you could work with each other. And I think there's a lot to learn from people from other countries who, their approach to networking is quite different. I mean, that's why we've got three, amazing guests this week who are all going to have different perspectives on networking. So South African networking will be very different to a Canadian networking group, to now with Robert in the UAE, another environment which is very expat focused.
Yeah.
And the balance between local, as Julie said, versus international. If you're working at a local level, but you're talking about, maybe you're bringing in cheeses or something, right? Business is cheeses. You're going to still want to be talking to those other countries that have the best cheeses in the world, to import them to, to sell in your business. So even if you're local, you'll still probably be thinking internationally in some way.
Yeah. So sorry, Julie.
No, go for it.
No, please, you first.
No, I was just going to say is, and sometimes, like we were saying about the products can always be a bit of a strange one. There's not always an instant match, but there can be similarities on experiences, or where they're doing marketing, or where they're finding customers. So you can really share your learnings. It can be quite surprising. I'm pretty sure it was one of your stories around estate agents that met each other at a networking group. It was in the Central Belt, and it's that whole, meeting each other and going, I do this, I do that, but I don't like doing that. And they went, oh, I love doing that, but I don't like doing that. And you just don't know until you open up, and there's opportunities there. Even when we met our competitor last week. That was a really sort of strange but exciting experience that we met through a connection. And we were it was quite energizing, because it can be a really uncomfortable conversation, but actually there's opportunities to help each other. If they've got a busy time and they can't cope with something, they could come to us. Vice versa, we could ask for some advice on something technical or something. There's room for everybody. So even if you come across your competitor, you just don't know where it's going to take you. It could end up in a partnership.
That's such a good point again as well, Julie. We've talked about the educational side of it, the knowledge part of it all. And there's so many people in networking that don't approach their competitors. I can't speak to such and such. They do what I do. Or I'm going to a networking event. Oh, is there going to be people there that do my industry there? Is there going to be a confliction of errors or a confliction of business? No, it's not. It's like what you say, you share best practice, you share areas. And sometimes, like you said with the estate agents, they get together and they go, well, you do exactly the same as I do, but I don't like doing that. Could you do that? So you start to form some really solid partnerships that opens up an avenue that you've never looked at before. It's like there's a mountain's worth of coaches out there, phenomenal coaches out there. And people say they do exactly the same thing across the board, but no, every single coach in business is completely different. They all bring a different skill set to the table. And if you can tap into like different variety of different coach elements in the way of doing your business, where's that going to take your business? That next level. You could be just trying to break through that ceiling, and it just takes that one person to go boom, and it just changes it. You lift it up.
But that's what you've said previously, and I know we talked about at length, is your business is about you and your experiences. It's your USP. So how can we all be the same? We can't be. We've all had different experiences.
Yeah.
So like you say, you know, you meet your competitor, you could be talking about a subject that they've got no experience of and you've got a vast experience of, and it's just sharing and learning and finding out, and you won't know until you've had that conversation. It can be really a strange conversation, but really quite energizing. I found I got goosebumps talking to her anyway.
Do you not agree though? Sometimes it's like you stay quite stagnant. You just keep going along the same thing.
The same thing. Yeah.
And then you're doing the same thing, the same place. Now and again, you just literally got to do something completely out of the comfort zone. And it's that, for many people, it's that embracing it, and it becomes energetic. There's an atmosphere, an energy that you actually get from each other from it as well. Because you're both in the same place. You both, as business owners, want to achieve the best. Yeah. But yeah, 100% agreement on that, Julie.
So I want to talk about another topic that I think people don't really realize until they're in it, and that's language. So when you're internationally networking, language can be a problem. I mean, it's, you know, living in countries, trying to network there. Julie and I found, you know, sometimes we struggle with networking here, because when we try to go to things, it's like, oh, this is only in Dutch. Oh, what a shame, you know. And I think when you don't network very much internationally, you forget things like you need to change the way that you speak. So you need to be able to slow down. And I know from moving to Australia to the UK and then working with a Finnish woman, she had no idea what I was saying for the first 3 months, because I was used to Australian speed talk. You know, when you have a conversation, you know, your speed is as necessary for the audience.
Yeah.
So things like slowing down how you speak, minimizing slang, so and not using sort of local words. So you're looking at thinking internationally in terms of what words would connect with someone. You might be talking to someone who English isn't their first language.
Yeah.
And how much will they understand? Where is your commonality? Like, you might love the same industry, but then your terminology might change. So you might be thinking about how to articulate a message much simpler than you might to a local audience. So there are a whole range of things when you do network internationally. Also keep in mind the person you're speaking to, or your audience. You know, how much will they understand from what you say, because you aren't necessarily going to talk to, you know, people in your own network down the road, for instance.
Yeah, I mean, we met our business coach in 2019, and it was, you know, I'd go to the monthly networking session at our office, and we were a bit like, oh, maybe this place isn't for us. You know, it is an international crowd, but they're mainly speaking Dutch. And I just stood on the edge of a conversation, blah, 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 in Dutch, and all I could hear was website. I kept hearing the website, and I was like, oh, that's the word I know. And I stuck around and I went, oh, hi, how are you doing? You know, we help out with websites. What are you talking about? And she turned out to be a business coach, and we actually got sponsorship through the government to have her support. So sticking around, feeling a bit weird on the edge of a conversation, thinking there's one word I'm going to hold on to. I know that one. And luckily, I suppose, I don't know what it was like in Germany, Louisa, but there is quite a lot of words, English words used in Dutch, so we can stick around on the edge of the conversation going, oh, you said CRM or something like that. I hope it has the same meaning.
And I think also asking people to bring you in. If you want to network in another space, be it in your own country or internationally, see if you can ask someone to help you to find your feet there. And I mean, I'm not embarrassed to ask someone if a conversation's in Dutch, just to help me to understand what's going on. I used to do that in Germany. I think also accents. Some people struggle with accents, and it's not that they're rude or, you know, there's no malice behind it. It's just some accents are stronger than others. And if someone says, oh, can you please repeat that, or I didn't understand, it's nothing to do with you. It's their understanding of what you're saying. And I think that's also important when you're networking internationally, to take those things into account, and to know that they could be a small barrier to to what you're trying to do, but there's a ways of overcoming those, and being aware of them.
Yeah, it's true. Being from the northeast of England, there's many people when I worked in the States who didn't have a clue what I was saying when I first started. And, my mother always said, you're a posh Geordie or a posh northeasterner. But I always tried to slow my accent down and adapt to the environments that I was in. And it felt like I was just trying to slow it down, because I do now and again do that speed talk, and you literally go into your full sway of what you do. But I remember there's one time when I was in San Antonio, Texas, at one of my first conferences, and it's the first time I met a big group of American colleagues. And I'm talking away to many, and they're just smiling and saying, "Hey, Haley, it's great. No problem at all." I apologize for anybody out there who's American who's listening to this accent, by the way.
Yeah.
But I was chatting away to many of them, and they just smiled and went, "Hey, Haley, great." And I said to my manager, I says, "Do they not like me or something? Or is it something that's coming across to them? Lee, they can't understand a word you're saying to them. And it's hard enough for me, being from Wales, actually understand you half the time as well." So it learned a chance just to slow it down slightly to be able to get the words across a lot easier. But I think that's such an important fact. I mean, work in the environments you feel comfortable in. I always remember that people in the room may not pick up on what you're talking about. Try and slow it down. Take out the slang words.
Yeah.
And a great point Julie mentioned there is listening. The active listening skills is really important. Is actively listening to the conversation that's being had. You'll pick up some little words that pop up about areas of pain points or things like that. You can tap onto them straight away, and that actually bridges the gap sometimes of different areas of networking as well.
Yeah, and I think it's about tailoring your message as well and checking understanding, because when we start our little 1 minute intro, we'll talk about VAs or OBMs, but we always check to make sure people know what they are before we just keep going and just keep going down the terminology road, and off we go. And TLA, 3-letter acronyms, we know plenty of those. We've actually got a blog about that. So I think unless we've got any other points you want to raise today, I think maybe we should wrap up.
Yeah,
but it's
definitely
been a really good session. Just to summarize what we went over today, was we talked about hybrid. That's the opportunities have brought no boundaries. A Clubhouse, I think I might dip my toe in a ring there. I'm not sure. I don't know if I'll ever come out again. I might have to put a timer on, make sure I do come out. About delving into markets. LinkedIn is, I think that's all our main focus there, and we've found some great contacts through there. Get out your comfort zone. Look at recommendations. So Lee's managed to get some opportunities through recommendations. We have as well, but also reach out to people and give recommendations. Sharing knowledge, and don't let the language barrier put you off.
Yes.
And slow down with the accents.
What did you say there?
What? We'll do one podcast when we'll all do each other's accents. Maybe it needs to be a Friday evening with a little drinky accent.
Oh,
Good
dear.
luck with that.
So thank you everyone so much for joining us on Network Now. We're looking forward to speaking to Christine Tudhope tomorrow on how she's broadened her network base from South Africa and her journey towards having an international impact. So look forward to that.
Thanks very much again to both our co-hosts, delightful co-host today as well. But we've been getting some amazing feedback over the last few months, and on the podcast, including from Bob Berg, from the Go Giver, who said he loved everything about the interview. Amy Collins, who said it was really good listen. Jade Hanley, who said this is the most energetic or high energy, fun, insightful interview I have seen for this type of interview. Well done. Susant K, who said it was a fun conversation. We've had live contributions and comments from Ian McPherson, Claire Valiant, Victoria Flater, and Will Kintish, Robin Callender, Edward Rice, and many, many others. So thank you so much for sharing during the sessions. And of course, please keep contributing into these sessions when you join us on LinkedIn Live or any of the formats that you see on there. Join us at 4 p.m. GMT time. That's tomorrow's afternoon session. To remember to follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and subscribe to the YouTube and Revitalize Blue Ninja social media platforms. By all means, check out the podcast network now on Anchor FM and Spotify for great conversations. For myself, from Julie, and from Louisa, we wish you all the very best on the start of your week ahead. Thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate it. Take care, everybody.
Happy networking.
Indeed.